Hello, Fearless Gamers. Matt here for Fearless Games, and welcome to our first live stream here. I'm pretty sure I am muted right now. There we go. Hello, Fearless Gamers. Matt here for Fearless Games, and welcome to the first live stream here on the YouTube channel. And it is a episode of The Joy of Painting Minis. Like I said, this is a little bit of an experiment here going on, so please bear with me while we work throughout all the kinks and bugs in the stream. As you can see, we've got a Tau Emissary BFG ship right here that we're going to be painting. So, like I said, this is the Tau Emissary. This is the original Forge World miniature. Got this off of Phil when he left. Or, well, he's just no longer around here to be able to play BFG with me, so he let me keep the fleet so we could still have games going on. And so what we're going to be doing for this is we're going to be painting it in the Doran'Por Set World colors. This is something we've never officially done with any of the Tau models on the old live streams videos. If anyone remembers the Doran'Por series, we had a Set World of Tau that Phil had created, obviously called Doran'Por. But when you saw them, they were always in that classic Tau tan Set World color. But that isn't the actual Set World colors for this faction. Instead, it's actually a turquoise color. So we're going to be using a game color turquoise from Vallejo. Give this a nice good shake right now. And we've already primed it. We primed it using Vallejo Surface Primer White. And so just going to give this a little bit of a good shake because this paint has been sitting for some time. All right. Okay, and then put a little bit on our palette. And the reason for the turquoise color was because, according to Phil, the word Doran'Por in Tau means pure water. So he always envisioned that the planet that they came from was primarily aquatic. So it's going to have a bluish tinge to it, like a sea blue kind of thing. So he decided on turquoise. I don't know how many of you guys know this, but for those who do not know, Tau basically use a form of camouflage on their vessels in their armies. So when you see them, they're not like Space Marines where no matter what planet they're on, they're always in their chapter colors. They actually will paint their ships and their armor in a color that matches the planet they're on. So since Doran'Por is an aquatic world, they would paint the ships that hang out in the system in a color that would kind of match the planet. So they would essentially blend in with it, which is kind of interesting. It allows you to have a little bit more control over the colors. Kind of gives you like an Eldar kind of setup where you can paint different colors but still be part of the same group or faction, which I think is pretty neat. And so we're going to start here. Like I said, we're going to be applying this all over. This is going to be an all over color for this model. So we will be going there. And actually something really interesting. Forgive me if I ramble on and on. I feel like just dead air while painting is a little boring. So forgive me if it sounds like I'm just rambling on and on and on. So an interesting thing about this particular ship and the fleet that it comes from, it's the Forge World. I think it was called the Tau. It was either the the expansionary defense force, or I forget the name of it off the top of my head. But this was Forge Worlds. They made all the rules for this particular this particular faction of Tau, thinking they were going to be the only ones making any rules for Tau. So it turns out they didn't know about the GW Tau, which was going to be more the traders and merchant vessels. So when they went and they were developing them, they did get some feedback from the Battlefleet Gothic guys, and their feedback was, these guys are a little OP. You gotta tune them down. Here's some of our notes about that. And the Forge World team apparently did not like that, and so they did submit their new rules with some changes to the Tau rules, but they didn't really change a whole lot of them. I think one of the things they found was a little broken on them was the turning torpedoes and giving pretty much all the vessels like really high armor, front armor. So Forge World wasn't a big fan of being told that their stuff was OP, and so they did make some changes, but very minimal, like basically enough to go, there, we changed them, they're not, stop complaining. And when the Armada book came out, little bit here is, so Forge World released, they got the green light, they released their rules for the BFG ships on, I want to say Imperial Armor 13? Was whichever Imperial Armor was heavily, no, it couldn't be 13, I think 13 was Chaos. I think it was 3. It was, whichever one was the one that had a lot of the Tau stuff in it. They had their own special, they had a section for Battlefleet Gothic. And that's where they introduced the Tau Defense Force fleet. And then when the Armada book came out, which featured the Tau Merchant Fleet, apparently Forge World got really angry because they were like, what? You didn't tell us there was going to be another fleet. We thought we were going to be the only ones making Tau stuff. And that was when they decided they weren't going to contribute any more to Battlefleet Gothic. So for anyone who was around when Battlefleet Gothic was still popular, there was only a handful of ships that Forge World was selling. They sold the Tau Defense Fleet. They sold 2 Eldar vessels, which was, one of them was the, actually, was it 2? Yeah, pretty sure it was 2. One was the one that just had the single sail going across, I think it was the Solaris class, and they had there was another one. I have 2 of them. I can't remember for the life of me what it was called. I want to, it wasn't the Eclipse, I forget which one, but it was another Eldar vessel. And then they had a Grey Knights strike cruiser, the Tau Defense Fleet, and the Tau defense platforms. They had the Thunderhawks ordnance markers, some Eldar ordnance markers, and the Star Fort. And they were on board to do more, it seems, but when they found out that GW had released the Tau Merchant Fleet, apparently they got so offended by this that they refused to do any more contribution to Battlefleet Gothic than they already had. So they were continuing to produce the models that they had already designed, but they were like, we're not doing any other models for this game. You're gonna pull that on us, we're not doing anything. So it seemed like back in the day that the Forge World guys were a little petty when it came to working on projects, which I think is a little odd. especially since they did a lot of really good models for Battlefleet Gothic, like the Eldar transports for escort missions, which is great. I love having those kinds of. Those were great because it was I wanted those kinds of ships. I know the game was primarily encouraging you to do a lot of customization and such. That was kind of like one of the things that hurt Battlefleet Gothic, because it didn't really rely completely on GW producing all the ships. And granted, they were planning on getting rid of specialist games to begin with. They apparently, from what I've read, they weren't really supposed to be doing Battlefleet Gothic, but one of the heads at the time really loved the idea, and he's like, even though I know we're getting rid of specialist games, I want this game to be produced. So it was kind of one of those scenarios where one of the heads knew what was happening, but was like, this game is so good, we need people to experience it, even if it is just temporary. Alrighty, so now, the age-old question. Am I going to try this trick out or not? I think I am going to try this trick out. So, I'm going to see how my panel liner is going to look in those spaces right here. There's like a checkerboard pattern there. I'm going to see how putting in just a touch of black will look in that spot. Let's see now. Doesn't flow as well as it usually does, but it works. It's nice. I will admit, partway through I usually record videos on Sunday, and I was like, oh, I forgot to do a video this week. But then I was like, I've been meaning to give live streaming a try with a live feed from the camera. I went out and I'd gotten the connector that I'm using right now for this live feed, and I was like, you know what? This is a good opportunity to give this a shot. So, in essence, my haphazardness and forgetting what week it was had given me an opportunity to try out this new format. So what this is going to be, what I'm thinking is maybe do every now and then, instead of doing my regular Joy of Painting mini video compilation where I record then edit, maybe I'll do some live stream video instead. And then later on, drop an edited video of the production of the painting project. That way, those that would like to watch live can get a live feed of. I could probably use my phone to see the chat. For you, it's not too bad because I'm hearing you click on the keyboard, so after I hear you stop, I'm like, I should probably check to see if she clicked on the keyboard. Plus, I'll be distracted. I want to try to limit my distractions, but we'll look into it. Because this is still a work in progress. This whole production. Lore accurate Tau terms and names for all of his vessels when we were really big into the Doran'Por series. For those who do not know, the way Tau named their vessels, now I'm taking just a few minutes here for the ink to dry up before I move on, and we're probably going to go with the Evil Sun's Scarlet. That way it's like the blue is a little dark, and then this will give a nice pop. You know, don't want the whole thing to be all dark colors. And do I have a non... Yeah, I do. Get the non-airbrush version of the color. Let's see, is it good? That's the $1,000,000 question. Yeah, it's good. Do I have any brighter reds? I'll use that for highlighting. Troll Slayer. I also got this red. What do you think of that one? Oh, that one may not be good because that sounds a little too liquidy in there. Is it good? No, I believe this one's bad. Time to add that to the shopping list. Which, still using the Paint Rack app because it's a really good app. And actually, oh, there's that red. I think that's a nice one. It's a nice balance, not too dark, not too bright. I think I'll go with Mephiston red. Love that sound. So yeah, while these paint colors dry, so what we're going to be painting with this is we'll be painting the circles around here, the engine blocks, and the bridge, those colors. And then the inner circle here is going to be black, and the back engines are going to be black as well. And the red is going to go along this stem here in the middle. But yeah, so Phil had gone out of his way to learn enough of the Tau vocabulary using the limited info that GW had given on Tau, because like they didn't go crazy and make a whole vocabulary, but you know, enough words, you know, to get some distant, you know, to get a little bit of flavor in there, so they can throw some Tau words in every now and then into dialogue and such. And so he actually looked up this whole thing with them, and oh, right. Before, what I was talking about before I went on my little tangent there is Tau naming ships is weird. It's first if I understand correctly, if I remember the order correctly, it's the planet that the vessel was built on. So in this case, if this ship was built at Doran'Por, the first part of its name would be Doran'Por. Then its class type, so Doran'Por Emissary, but there's like a fancy Tau word for it. I just don't know it. And then after that, the ship's first captain, followed by the ship's current captain. And if the first captain and the current captain happen to be the same, then they just drop one of the instances of the captain's name. So a little weird. Their ship naming structure is a little weird to me. Looking pretty good there. So let us move on to painting some of the black details in this guy. Let's add some black. So we're gonna put black on these dots here, and on these engines, and then on all the gun barrels on this vessel. Okay. Now, one thing that I do a little differently for a lot of these, I like to use air paints with a brush, mostly because because they're thinned down for, oh no, my paints, my beautiful paints. Because they're already thinned down for an airbrush, I find I don't need to thin them down anymore. It's as if I had went through the trouble of thinning them. So I kind of like using airbrush paints when possible. There we go. Good. Alrighty. So, with that out of the way, rinse the heresy out of my paintbrush. That's a James joke, so blame James if you think that joke was corny. But we are going to be rinsing, well, he wanted to say to beat the heresy out of the brush, like, you know, like how Bob Ross used to say, just whack or beat the devil out of the brush after he hit it in some paint thinner. So what we're now going to do is hit that with a wash of Carenberg Crimson. It's using some old school paint here. This is one of the more original washes. And yet I have like 5 bottles of these. I don't know why. Probably because I forgot I had it. And we're gonna hit just where the panel lines are and the crevices. I don't want to go too crazy with this wash. Very good. Alrighty. And while we wait for that wash to dry up, I'm going to try to make a ink-like consistency with my white, so I can put a little white into these Tau symbols on the wings of the emissary. So let's give this a shot. See how well this goes. So I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see better what it is I'm doing. Okay, not the best, but that is a very thin line, and I am not using the best technique for this. So I'm just trying to get it as thin as possible to get into those tiny little crevices. There we go. There we go. So let that dry for a brief moment, and then we will go in to fix that up. Now I'm just cleaning up the blue areas where I had dabbed the ink for the panel lining. Okay. So, yeah, I could probably go and make the checker pattern a little more prominent, but I think it looks good as it is. So we're going to go back and clean up all these reds areas that we made with that we've tidied up with the Carberg Crimson. Then, after that, we will hit up the engines and the gun barrels with some black. Then we'll do a final effect on the engines, and then we can call this piece done. Alrighty. Now, we're gonna hit it up. We're gonna hit up. So next step is gonna be touching up the black, putting black on the guns. Then we're going to do some highlighting and engine work. Well, probably do the highlighting later. But what I'm gonna do with that is I'm gonna mix some white with the teal to try and lighten it up a little bit. We're gonna hit this up with a lighter red. And then that'll be it for the highlights. Not going to be too crazy because it is a BFG ship. They're not really super detailed in that sense where you need to really highlight them. That's like a extra step if you want to go. Oops, sorry. I always forget when I'm using the ring focus which way is zooming in, which way is zooming out. And that's looking pretty good right now. All right, so do one more little quick touch up on that area just to fix up where I got a little too much black on the front plate of the hull. First and foremost, going to take care of those engines. So, since I was before it's ready for the next step, but completely doable. And I could be a little messy in here because that'll just help with the painting out the edges of the engines to give it a glow effect. Okay, so now I'm gonna let that dry. While I do that, we're going to do a little bit of edge highlighting. So let me first see how a white with turquoise looks. Come on. There we go. Yeah, I think that's good. So, mental note. 3 parts white, 1 part turquoise. Alrighty, now looking pretty good. So probably gonna later go back and gotta fix up a couple little things here, but looking pretty solid, I'd say, for what we've got here on a tiny little Battlefleet Gothic ship, especially since I haven't painted BFG in forever. I'm gonna just quickly go in with some turquoise here and fix up this little spot here. And then fix up that little mistake. Okay. Straighten out that highlight line a little bit. All right. So now gonna highlight the red. So we're coming down to the wire here. It's gonna be highlighting the red, doing the engines, and then probably it. I'm probably not gonna do any highlighting on the black on the engines. If anything, I'll just clean it up a little bit afterwards. Get my red highlight color here, which, since it's Mephiston red, gonna do Evil Sun Scarlet as my highlight. That's a very subtle highlight, so I might go over it again, but it's not a big deal if it's very subtle. Doesn't need to stick out like a sore thumb. Okay, so what we're going to do for the engines is going to pull out the old Gilliman blue, or Gulliman, or however you wish to pronounce his name, and we're going to fill it in into the engines. Now, like, they don't make the wash anymore, or the glazes anymore, so a substitute for this would be taking one of the contrasts, like Tessadar blue, I think it's pronounced, thinning it down really thin to create a glaze. Okay, and that's going to be to add a white center. So for that, I'm going to have to find my thinnest brush. Let's see. Aha. I think you will do. Actually, do I have medium? What are you? A small layer brush. Are you smaller? This one I think will do just fine. Okay, and so we're going to try and get a really nice thin edge in the very center of those engines. And it's okay if this is a little thin, because it'll help with the glow effect from the piece. Okay. Right, and then with the steadiest of hands. And with that, our Tau Emissary is done. All that's left to do is make any minor touch-ups that may need to be fixed up, and apply our preferred top coat. You can check out photos of this and other models we've painted on our Instagram page, link in the description. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, fearless gamers, take care!